New York Attorney General Letitia James says that she has found the evidence. Now, the evidence of what? Well, in her words, significant financial fraud against former President Donald Trump and his children. So now, let me go through the details here. So let me note right off the bat, that does not mean that there are any charges that have been brought forward yet. However, at this point, they have requested documents and testimony from Trump himself and his children. So now, documents already obtained have cited Trump falsely inflating the size of his penthouse by at least three times. Other cases involve Trump trying to get appraisers to exaggerate the value of his Georgian mansion in Seven Springs, and other, basically ways to try to screw over insurance people, investors, i.e. other rich people, essentially. So now that's going to be kind of important going further on, but let's go to some of the details here. So according to the supplemental documents, a 2000 appraisal prepared for the Royal Bank of Pennsylvania and sent to the Trump Organization had estimated that Seven Springs had an as-is market value of $25 million for residential development. So this is an empty lot, essentially. And so the Trump Organization, they buy the empty lot, and they curiously begin to overvalue it. In fact, 4 years later, Trump stated the value of, again, this undeveloped land at $80 million. Holy crap. Oh, but it gets worse. In 2007, he then stated the value at $200 million. In 2009, the value went up to $251 million, which is ironically right after the real estate crash. And then 2012 to 2014, the stated value of this still undeveloped land, some of which was supposed to have been given away, was now at $291 million. Stated, by the way, not actual value. So now the 2012 through 2014 statements of financial condition reported value for the Seven Springs at $291 million and asserted that this property is zoned for 9 luxurious homes that have more or less not been built yet. So now the Trump Organization says, well, it's because we're basing it on the value of things that we haven't built yet, but we're going to build. We're going to build it. We'll build it and then they'll come. And then it'll be worth that, but we're already claiming that it's worth that now. Well, that's fraud. Now there's more. Each financial statement asserted that the valuation was based on an assessment made by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates of the projected net cash flow, which he would derive as those units are constructed and sold, in the estimated fair value of the existing mansion and other buildings. Mr. McConney, Senior Vice President and Controller of the Trump Organization, testified that this valuation includes the full amount that would be generated from the sale of the non-existent homes, without taking into account the years it would take to construct infrastructure, build homes, obtain necessary approvals, and sell the number of homes identified in the supporting data. He provided similar testimony with regard to the 2013 and 2014 valuations. So now, according to appraisers, these valuations were way off. The entire property, including the undeveloped land and the existing buildings, as of December 1st, 2015, was only worth about $56.5 million. Oops. Now, when asked about this discrepancy in the stated filings, Eric Trump, who along with Donald Trump Jr., who runs the organization, right? Eric Trump was questioned for about 6 hours. Do you know how many times he used the Fifth Amendment? Over 500 times. I plead the fifth. I don't want to incriminate myself. 500 times. Interesting. So obviously, he seems to know something. Now, you also have Ivanka Trump, who's also named. According to the documents, Ms. Trump had caused misleading financial statements to be submitted. These documents, of course, raise a lot of questions. obviously because the stated value way more than the appraised value. And so now James filed a motion to compel testimony and obtain document from Trump and his two eldest children in this case. Now, a source familiar with the investigation told the Rolling Stone that the evidence was, quote unquote, strong. The key thing here is this new information demonstrates that Trump and his family are personally implicated in this fraud. So now, based on this information, I'm going to draw a couple of conclusions, right? So first thing, of course he did the fraud. Like, are you kidding? Of course. It's very, very obvious. Yes, he inflated the value in order to, and why would you inflate the value of your properties? In order to, of course, inflate the value of your assets in order to get access to higher loans. That's how Donald Trump has always operated his businesses. Trying to go and get higher and higher loans to finance new so-called projects. And then, of course, when he defaults on these loans, as he often has, I think 5 or 6 times, went bankrupt. But yeah, he'll just declare bankruptcy like he did 5 or 6 times when he defaults on those loans. A lot of those loans being, of course, junk loans. So, all right, now, that's who Trump is. He has always used someone else's money to run a con. First daddy's money, now using investor money, and of course, money that he cheated from not paying taxes, essentially. So now, the second thing, and arguably it's the most important thing here. So what does this mean? If he is found guilty, charged, what does this mean for him going forward? Well, unfortunately, there's no criminal charges attached to this yet. So right now, we're looking at civil litigation from the people who were allegedly defrauded. So again, that includes lenders, banks, insurance brokers. So again, is essentially rich people. So now that actually is important because what is the number one rule of being in the club? What is the number one rule of rich people? Don't steal from other rich people. Now, you could steal from the poor all day, every day of the week. You know, Monday through Friday, bank fees, overdraft fees, fees on top of fees, parking fees, luggage fees, just fees, right? Fees on top of fees. And you can go and you can use, these fraudulent means to go and steal money. Wage theft is another one where you're just literally taking what what workers should have gotten for working and put it in your pocket. Now you can get away with a lot of that without a lot of consequences or without any consequences in some case. But when you steal from rich people as a rich person, well, then there's some consequences. There's consequences. Unacceptable. And so what we're looking at is, again, a lot of litigation that will end up having to go possibly to court and end up in financial penalties. Now, that does not mean, however, in the case of, if you're gathering documents and testimony, that they might not find something that could implicate him on a criminal matter. We don't know. And the door is essentially open. Remember, last year, a spokesperson for James's office released a statement saying this: "We are now actively investigating the Trump organizations in a criminal capacity, along with the Manhattan DA." So we're not ruling that out. So there could possibly end up being, some criminal charges later on. This is still an investigation, and that's it. But hey, it's not too much to get excited about yet, but it's also certainly not good news for Donald Trump. And I'd like to see him face some consequences somewhere at some point